Hello and welcome to the Joe Ligato Show. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Ligato, and today we're going to be talking about how has China's rise affected the traditional power dynamics and alliances that existed in Europe during the Cold War. And the first part we're going to talk about here is Turkey and Greece. These two countries have been in contention since the time of the Byzantine Empire, when the Ottoman Empire ended up toppling the Byzantines, taking over Constantinople, now known as Istanbul. And these two countries were in a very contentious relationship during the Cold War. Both of them were more aligned with the West versus the Soviet Union due to the centrally located part of Turkey. So Turkey is just in a very key strategic location for the NATO alliance, and because of that, the Western powers curried favor with Turkey, but they also didn't want to lose Greece in the process. And so both of those countries are a part of NATO, and Greece is a part of the European Union, and Turkey would have liked to have been a part of the European Union. And because of that, both of these were in a very uneasy alliance, both against the Soviet Union. Turkey had very historical reasons for being against the Soviet Union because of their history, their tension with the Russians. Greece actually had some decent reasons to be aligned with the Soviet Union because of historical Orthodox Christian roots, but these countries somehow managed to make it work while both being a part of the Western-led alliance, despite the fact that they were even fighting, even in contention during the Cold War, such as in Cyprus, where Cyprus was split between Turkey and Greece. There was a Turkish portion of Cyprus and a Greek portion of Cyprus. And so this has changed with the rise of China and with the rise of the multipolar world order, where it looks like there's going to be a more clear split, but it's not exactly what you would expect. Again, Turkey is very centrally located. It's a very strategic point, and somehow Russia and China have managed to curry favor with Turkey, and the United States has managed to fumble their political goodwill with Turkey to such an extent that Turkey is actually pivoting more towards the Russia-China alliance, whereas Russia, because of its Orthodox Christian roots, you would have expected Greece to be the one to pivot towards the Russia-China alliance. But due to these really unforeseen circumstances, Greece is still in the Western camp, despite them not benefiting from being in the Western camp, and despite having historical reasons to be a part of the Russia-China camp. And Turkey, despite having historical grudges, reasons to not be a part of the Russia-China camp, is a part of the Russia-China camp, and the United States fumbled the ball so much that Turkey has a lot of animosity towards Western powers now. In fact, Turkish leaders have recently been saying that if you're pro-America, you're a traitor to your country because of the fact that America has done so much to destabilize Turkey. And so this is a situation that is, I would say, pretty unexpected, but you can consider it a very major win for the Russia-China side, because while Greece has some historical reasons to be close to Russia, it's a very small population, and it's not as strategically located as Turkey. And so the fact that they managed to get one of these two countries to their side, and the more strategically located country, means that Russia-China really did win here when it came to picking one of these countries off from the Western alliance. The next region we're going to look at, how has China's rise affected the traditional power dynamics and alliances that existed in Europe during the Cold War era. We're going to look at the former Yugoslavia. So we have to remember that there was a non-aligned movement before the multipolar world movement, and I really consider the multipolar world movement to be the successor movement to the non-aligned movement. And Yugoslavia was a major leader of the non-aligned movement, and the United States made sure to topple them after the fall of the Soviet Union. And Serbia, which was really the core of Yugoslavia, the Serbian people were the core of Yugoslavia, they are still heavily aligned with Russia. They have been since pre-World War I times. And United States has been picking away at Serbia as much as possible. So that Cold War alliance has still stayed relatively stable, with Serbia being firmly in the Russia-China camp and other various aspects, other parts of the former Yugoslavia being picked off and taken away by the Western-led, American-led camp. You're seeing situations that are completely hypocritical in Yugoslavia, really, because take, for example, Crimea, which is primarily ethnically Russians voting themselves into Russia. And then you have places like Kosovo, and the United States says the Crimea situation is illegitimate, but then you have places like Kosovo where the ethnically Muslim population reproduced at a higher rate than the Serbian population, which historically controlled Kosovo, and because of that, they were able to vote for independence for Kosovo away from Serbia, and the United States says that's legitimate. So, United States, if they're being if they have a cohesive narrative here, they would say, well, either parts of countries can vote themselves out of a union with that country or can't vote themselves out of a union with that country. And so there's a degree of incoherence in this rules-based order that is allowing Kosovo to break away, but not Crimea to break away from their country of origin there. And so Yugoslavia really has gone the worst of it, where they're, I would say, at least somewhat strategically located, and because of the fact that the non-aligned movement represented a threat to the United States after they thought they were at the end of history, it offered an alternative perspective about how countries can be governed. That just could not be allowed to stand. And so the United States did absolutely everything it could to break up Yugoslavia and to bend rules and break rules and do completely hypocritical things in order to destroy the Yugoslavian nation and the Serbian people. And they're still doing that to this day. There's still tensions going on. There's still troops, Western troops, in Kosovo and in areas in order to keep Serbia down. And so this is a Cold War era alliance and power dynamic that has stayed relatively the same since then. Although you could say after the Cold War, things changed a little bit in that Yugoslavia used to be non-aligned. But now it's firmly a Soviet Union, Russian ally because of the fact that the United States just betrayed it. It destabilized the country, made sure it couldn't be a competitor to the United States. And so some similar things to the Cold War, and when the things aren't similar to the Cold War, it's to the benefit of Russia, China. Things have just not been going the way of the United States and the Western-led alliance. Next, we'll take how has the China's rise affected the traditional power dynamics and alliances that existed in Europe during the Cold War era. We're going to look at Eastern Europe. And a lot of those countries, if they're not being directly supported by the United States, not being directly subsidized by the United States and Western Europe, then they actually said that they liked communism, their time under communism, better than the current situation. We have to remember that it wasn't only Russia that faced a shock in their economic system after the collapse of the Soviet Union. A lot of these countries really did suffer after communism fell in Eastern Europe. And so some of these countries have been pivoting back towards the Russia-China side. Places like Hungary, they have a decent situation right now, and they're trying to increase their fertility rate to keep their population up. But places like the United States do not want them to have sovereignty, do not want them to have autonomy and agency, and so they're being forced to support a more Russian, China-led world order. And so these are some historical ties that have been kept, but Eastern Europe, because of how centrally located it is, United States and NATO has really been picking apart that area, getting them to join NATO, getting them to be anti-Russian. And so that has changed to a decent extent since the Cold War times. And this has changed, I would say, more in America's favor. One of the few regions of the world that has pivoted more America. And that's because America is just willing to throw money at the problem there. The last area we'll be looking at is how has China's rise affected the traditional power dynamics and alliances that existed in Europe during the Cold War era. We're going to look at Western Europe. And I would say that being a part of the NATO-led world was of benefit to Western European countries like Italy, like Germany, like France, like the United Kingdom before. But nowadays, being a part of that Western-led world is not actually that much of a benefit. They've deindustrialized all across Western Europe. They've demilitarized, so they don't even have a standing army that can defend their borders. They've have massive immigration problems where people aren't assimilating into their country. And so, yes, they are still firmly in the Western-led camp, the American-led camp, but I don't think at this point they have much of a choice. They are puppet governments. They're not doing things that would actually be sane. They're not doing things that would benefit their own countries, their own people. They're not sovereign nations anymore. And so, yes, they're still continuing their same alliances, still the same power dynamics that they had during the Cold War, but it's less out of it being a benefit to them, which I think it was a benefit to them during the Cold War, and more so just out of the fact that they don't have the sovereignty to make a different choice now that would actually benefit their nation. And so, hopefully that answered your question about how has China's rise affected the traditional power dynamics and alliances that existed in Europe during the Cold War era. I'm going to be back soon with another segment talking about the rest of the world and how those power dynamics and alliances changed or stayed the same as the Cold War era. So if you like this video, please like the video itself. And if you want to hear more from me, please subscribe to the channel to hear about more content. And I read all of the comments in the comment section. And if it's something that needs to be brought up in a video, I will answer the comment as a question answer segment. So please send me any comments you have, any questions, any criticisms, any feedback you might have for me in the comment section. I read all of that and I appreciate all of it. So thank you for sticking with me, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.